They practically played the tape out like it was live, just a couple of video effects added to it. Is this CM Punk Rey Mysterio match the match that never gets a build? There's always one every WrestleMania. We of course had Batista versus Umaga, rest in peace of course, a couple of years previous, and that didn't get much of a build. It's that syndrome, that JBL versus Finlay, that match that we all expect to see opening the card.
Yeah, it is. It's the Rush job, and it's a place for them on the card. It's like where Orton's ended up with DiBiase and Rhodes, and unfortunately where poor John Morrison has ended up with R-Truth in this tag match for the unified titles. I know everyone can't get a good spot, but I mean, you can do a hell of a lot better. I mean, that's what I kind of like about the X Division, you know. At least you can put all the great talent together, but having them in these awful matches, especially on a stage like WrestleMania 26 for the unified tag titles, especially that match, just makes me sick.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that they kept that match on the card. I was hoping that it was one of those swerves where they put the guys on the card and maybe it was going to be changed somewhere down the line, but certainly that match still going forward. R-Truth and John Morrison came out strong of this week's tapings, going over the guys we mentioned a minute ago, right?
Yeah, their Hart Dynasty, and again, the lack of a tag division. How many actual tag teams are there in the WWE? That's a question for everyone in the chat room to let us know here, because by the team of Carlito and Primo, that's probably gone. Crime Time, Hart Dynasty, R-Truth, John Morrison, Showmiz. Where are they? Where are the tag teams?
I really missed the tag teams that had that uniform gimmick where the guy had the same colour on. They were two guys, but I can kind of understand maybe why at least Vince and his marketing strategy is to break guys up. I suppose maybe they're thinking that if they've got two guys with the same gimmick, they will sell less merchandise than if they had two separate guys with different gimmicks. But of course that doesn't help us when we look for that old school tag team action that we just don't get anymore.
Yeah, but these things come in time. I think all you have to do is look at so many examples from Hart Foundation where a solid tag team were built for so many years, and then both went singles careers, and Bret went on to great stuff. Again, the Rockers, another example where Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels, Shawn went off and did his own thing, and is still probably one of the biggest names in the game these days. There's a squazillion examples, but I like to see proper tag team wrestling, and I think Ring of Honor and TNA do cater for really well, but WWE need to step it up. It's suffering big time.
Indeed, R-Truth and Morrison burying the Hart Dynasty to get some heat going into their match at WrestleMania. It doesn't currently have any heat, and that's what they seem to be trying to do. And of course, Mysterio, as you mentioned, taking on Gallows. Mysterio, of course, coming out strong in a sense for that match. And indeed, one would have to wonder, CM Punk versus Rey Mysterio. I hope that's right down there at the bottom of the card with the tag team match that we just mentioned, because those are certainly the ones that you're going to have a chance to kind of warm up to watching WrestleMania. You're hardly going to be glued to the screen for those ones, not personally anyway. So otherwise, SmackDown had, as you said, Hardy and MVP versus Swagger and Ziggler. It's very interesting to see that Ziggler is coming out on top in some form. Ziggler always needing a push.
I like Ziggler. He's a good contender for the Money in the Bank, and I think between him, Shelton, and actually Swagger as well has impressed me lately, even though I was never a fan. It'll be an interesting mix, and it'll be really good Money in the Bank this year, I think. Definitely.
My final thought watching this week's SmackDown, I really feel that the Straight Edge Society need to have more done with them. I think we've seen those promos where Serena got her hair shaved off and you had Luke Gallows getting initiated to the Straight Edge Society, but I want to see more vignettes. I want to see more specially filmed segments where they flesh out the Straight Edge Society and perhaps give us an idea of what they are. We buy the fact that CM Punk is some form of guru. I predict that's, or at least think that's what they're trying to get at. With Serena and Luke Gallows as his followers, but I just think by now we should have seen them in more vignettes, and I believe that we should have maybe 6 or 7 followers by now. I would propose that perhaps there's 2 or 3 guys down in Florida Championship Wrestling that we'll talk about next that should be in the Straight Edge Society. I mean, there's enough of the FCW guys at the moment already in SmackDown.
Yeah, there's enough even talent on the 2 rosters that aren't getting much TV time, and some people just getting quick releases that we've seen in the last couple of weeks. And people who are very underused gimmick-wise, like they completely changed the whole Festus gimmick, bringing Luke Gallows in, a total 180 swerve with that, and it works. And there's a lot more people that it could work with, and not to go crazy NWO, WCW with it and have, Jesus, how many people, 12, 15 at one stage or something, nuts. Not that crazy, but maybe another 2 or 3 people, and really make it real solid.
Do you think if they did go that far, perhaps they just on a limb, thinking of guys from FCW, perhaps they could put AJ Lee, maybe Percy Watson, maybe even Gorilla, is that his name? I think maybe some of those guys could go there and find a spot, even if just a temporary try out on TV, if you like, but perhaps it could end up being an angle that goes in ways that we don't like, even if they did that. But the Straight Edge Society certainly, I think, needs a bit more explaining. I mean, they are essentially the emotional heart of this match at WrestleMania. If we can't know what they're about, we're not going to get this match.
Yeah, they're building the whole thing, and with Ray's history and Punk really kind of, I suppose, breaking the kayfabe buzz with talking about the pills and prescription stuff with Mysterio. It makes the angle interesting, but definitely with Punk being legitimately straight edge, and the whole Straight Edge Society works and puts a nice spin on it. But they kind of started the whole thing a little bit too late, and they're really trying to cram it all in for this past Friday, and next Friday's SmackDown will probably be the last bit of cramming before Mania. But and I think that's probably why as well we haven't seen many of those crazy vignettes as you spoke about, probably trying to get the build for Mania. But hope it continues afterwards and that it does grow into a nice stable. It'd be kind of cool.
Absolutely, and indeed WWE SmackDown this week quite interesting, but also interesting in the sense that you just kind of wondered what was happening. Just you're questioning the booker's decisions. You're wondering why they have to find a spot for CM Punk and Mysterio in a big match. You could equally put those guys in Money in the Bank. Now, perhaps that would deny some of the younger guys a spot, but certainly I wonder why you have to take up a singles match with certain guys. They always have to get their spot.
Yeah, I think, well, understandably, I think with Mysterio and Punk, the names are a little bit big for Money in the Bank, and especially with Punk having won it twice now. Mysterio, I think, would be a step down to put him in Money in the Bank. But again, you have to find a place in the card for him, just like Randy Orton and the position he's in with Ted and Cody. So, I'm sure it's not an easy job being on the creative, trying to find a spot for everybody. So, we'll give him a little bit of a break this week.
Absolutely, they're going to have to do everything they can to make this WrestleMania a hell of a lot better than last year's WrestleMania, which of course really only had that highlight of Michaels versus Undertaker, and they're planning on doing that again. As we know, we're going to talk more about WrestleMania very, very shortly. Now this week, Florida Championship Wrestling, quite difficult to catch on television and indeed on the internet. We will be honest, it was not possible, but we do have the results of Florida Championship Wrestling this week.